Namaskar and very good afternoon, learners. Today, I, Dr. Renu Tomar, is going to talk about bilingual education. Friends, in today's lecture, we will try to understand what is the difference between bilingual education and bilingualism. Apart from that, we shall also try to relate with the past practices which exist in the field of bilingual education as it exists in various countries, USA, UK and other European countries and even in India. And from that we will try to understand that what are the strengths of bilingual education and what are the weaknesses of bilingual education and how we should be working upon as to strengthen the bilingual education. Friends, particularly whenever we will talk in the context of our own country, that is India, bilingual education is a way for educating masses. Reason being that English as a medium is acceptable to the people, but they don't find it very comfortable as far as that medium of education is concerned. Same is the case with Hindi. A person who is born somewhere in the south will be much more interested in studying his education, all his books in the mother tongue, the language which is spoken around him, in his home, in the market, between the peer group. So that is the language which is more comfortable to most of the students as well as teachers. I would say that even as a teacher, which is the language we are comfortable in. Usually the language we are comfortable in is the language which we have practiced, which we have learned. And if we are not equipping our generations as to be a learner of English, if English medium is not there from the very beginning, we cannot have teachers who are very comfortable in English or very comfortable in Hindi. So friends, keeping in view our own context, our cultural variation, our diverse environment, socio-economic environment as well as geographical environment. So looking at the diversity, it's very important that bilingual education is not just propagated, but it is also practiced because it does have certain strengths. Now, the most important point is that whenever we will practice the bilingual education, there would be certain weaknesses which we will need to cater to. Those weaknesses might be psychological or sociological or any other, because of the lack of resource material or because of the fact that the teachers are not well versed in the language. So all those are challenges which we have to take into consideration whenever we will talk about bilingual education. So friends, from this note, let us try to understand what are the problems or what are the questions which we need to answer whenever we will want bilingual education to be taken by the school education as well as higher education. First of all, we need to understand what are the benefits of bilingual education. Secondly, we need to understand what are aims of bilingual education. Thirdly, we need to understand what are problems of bilingual education. So, in today's lecture, friends, I shall be covering all these questions which must be there in your mind, which all of us need to ponder. We will try to answer these questions, and if you have any question, then of course you can ask through the various media which is available to you. So friends, coming on the first question, what are benefits of bilingual education? Why is bilingual education needed? First of all, let us try to understand what is bilingualism or what is bilingual education. Are they same or are they different? Absolutely, bilingualism is very much different from the bilingual education. Bilingualism is the ability to communicate in two different languages, which most of us do. because all of us know at least 2 languages, particularly whenever we will talk in the context of India. We will have the learners, we will have the adults, we will have the students who are capable of communicating in at least 2 different languages. Friends, here when I am saying that communicate in 2 different languages, here I am not talking about, I am not referring to the strength or the ability or the efficiency or effectiveness in those languages. It is just the ability to communicate, not the efficiency or effectiveness in those 2 languages. Whenever we will talk about bilingual education, it is the use of 2 different languages in classroom instruction. For example, a teacher teaching in a class, when she is teaching social sciences, she may take up in Hindi medium as well as in English medium, or in Kannada or Hindi or English, depending upon the interest of the student, depending upon the needs of the student, depending upon the subject, and of course depending upon her own ability to communicate all these 3 languages. So friends, this is bilingual education. Now let us try to understand that how bilingual education has come into being. Let us take the definition given by Cohen in 1975. It is a commonly agreed definition of bilingual education, in which Cohen says that bilingual education is the use of 2 languages as a media of instruction for a child or a group of children in part or all of the school curriculum. Friends, this is something to be noted, in part or all of the school curriculum. Whenever we will talk of in part, that means in social sciences we may want the students to be taught in Hindi for particular aspects. So let us take example of mathematics. Friends, it is generally seen that whenever the tables are taught to the students in Hindi, they are not just able to pick up well, rather they are also able to use it well. So if for English medium student who is studying mathematics in English, he or she might be understanding the factorization and other things in English, but the calculation, the arithmetic part may be taught to him in Hindi. So depending upon the strength of the language, depending upon the need of the subject, the part or the whole curriculum can be decided upon for the usage of media of instruction for children or a child. So from here on, what we can conclude is that bilingual education scholars, they will be understanding not just 2 languages, but they would also be understanding 2 cultures. So language as such cannot be differentiated, cannot be subtracted from the culture. So whenever the student will be studying in bilingual education system, then naturally that student will automatically become bicultural, because learning a language means learning a certain culture. Like the students who are studying English and they are getting to know, they are, suppose we introduce some play or piece of literature which encompasses the culture of England, then naturally, because the student has to become well versed in the play which is introduced to him, then naturally the student will have to understand not just language but also culture, the English culture. Usually whenever we try to teach the child and make him understand the play, particularly the poetry and play in the English literature, it becomes very much important that a child also understand the culture in which that particular piece of literature is placed. How can a child understand that there is a woman who is wearing a skirt and smoking? How can he be able to understand when he sees his own mother usually draped in sari and not even thinking of smoking? So as to understand that why he is studying that, he needs to understand that culture also, that what kind of culture is there in the England, and accordingly the mother in that culture is something, smoking mother in that culture is something which is natural, which is acceptable in that particular culture. So, naturally the student will be becoming well versed not just in his own culture, but also he would be becoming well versed in the English culture. So, another reason which has been given by academician or educationist worldwide is that why bilingual education should be propagated. Fact that 75% of the world is bilingual, and friend, this being the fact makes it compulsory for us to study in bilingual system. So, this approach should be used throughout the world. It may be implemented in the different way in different educational goals in different countries, but this is something which should be done. This is being accepted by most of the academicians worldwide. Friends, you must be wondering that I am taking the topic of bilingual education, but still I am teaching it only in English. The reason for that is that here, for the academic purpose, for making you well versed in this particular subject, this particular topic, the need is that I should be introducing more of it in particular language, in particular media, so that you can not just understand, you can also use it for your academic growth. So that is why I am not being bilingual in this particular language. So friends, coming back to the topic, the recent researches have indicated that the bilingual education offers opportunity to improve below average and above average students. Friends, why this research is so important, and how can we say that bilingual education will improve below average and above average student? The reason for that is that whenever bilingual education is there, the child who is well versed with his own language, who understand his own culture, if he is taught in that particular language in which he is well versed, he will feel not just comfortable, but also the learning will improve. That is why usually in the schools, the social science, the subjects like social science are available in different languages, and students who study, and it is also seen throughout the country that whenever the child is being offered the subject in his or her language, particularly the subjects like social sciences, he or she not just understands but also is capable of applying those information later on in their life. Now, let us try to understand that why researchers have indicated that even above average student will be benefited by bilingual. The reason is that whenever the bilingual language will be offered, the child will also get an opportunity to become well versed with the culture of that language in which he or she is studying. The child who is above average, if he or she is offered 2 or 3 subjects, 2 or 3 language subjects like French, Spanish, Mandarin, English, and he or she later on become well versed in those languages, then naturally he or she is getting into an advantage group. He or she is getting the advantage of that. So, that is why the researchers have indicated that bilingual education is of importance to both below average and above average student. And another important aspect is that the demographic situation, particularly if we take example of India, our demographic situations are such that the bilingual education is needed, because we know that India is demographically also very diverse, and so there cannot be one formula. If there hasn't been one single formula developed for any other thing in India made with the constitution, how can we have the one single formula, one single medium for every child? We just cannot have. Every child has their different kind of need, just as every geographic region has demographic difference. So, accordingly, we have to adhere, we have to accept the bilingual education. Now, let us try to understand what bilingual education is. Is it just 2 languages or is it more? Of course, bilingual education on that aspect is a bit complicated because it does mean at least 2 languages. At least 2 languages means that there can be more than 2 languages, but not less than that. It also means that bilingual education would mean different things to different people. How would it be different? Different would be that bilingual education can be read by few people, that on certain topic we are teaching in both Hindi and English, both Hindi and Kannada, both Marathi and English and Hindi. This can also mean that certain topics shall be taught, just like the example I gave to you of mathematics. The tables are being taught in Hindi, but the other aspects are being taught in English. So, because mathematics is being covered in Hindi, but other things are being covered in English. So, here the proportion of curriculum has been divided as per the need, and that has been divided by languages also, from the perspective of languages also. So, that can be one differentiation. Another differentiation can be that we divide here. The 2 examples I gave you were that single topic can have 3 languages. Second was that certain topics or certain aspects of curriculum can be in one languages, other aspects of curriculum can be in other languages. Third can be introducing different languages in the curriculum, like we are doing it. We have Russian, we have Spanish, we have the regional languages also. The child who is studying Kannada, he or she is also offered Hindi and English. So, accordingly, the bilingual education system is providing the student scope for being educated in 3 or 4 or 5 languages. So, we would say that the bilingual education can be read by the different academician, by the different teachers in different way, and it may or may not be, and it may or may not be just 2 languages, or it may be more than 2 languages, and of course, it is the school subject which will be decided. So, we would say that the bilingual education would mean teaching 2 languages as independent school subject. Bilingual education would mean teaching some foreign language. Bilingual education would also mean that teaching certain topics in one language and certain topics of the curriculum in other language. Bilingual education would also mean that same topic is being taught in 3 or 4 languages mixed up, so that the student can understand, as to enhance the understanding of the student. So, from here what we have understood is that the bilingual education is medium of languages, but it is different from bilingualism, because bilingualism means that speaking 2 or 3 languages, but bilingual education is in fact encompassing bilingualism. In different countries, the bilingual education takes on different meaning, as well as it also gets different kind of space or priority. Now, let us take the example from the USA. In USA, bilingual education is perceived as being connected with sphere of minorities education. In fact, the immigrants and the children from the socially disadvantaged families, they are being looked at from the perspective of bilingual education. What does it mean? It means that the students who belong to socially disadvantaged family, they are offered bilingual education. They are offered studies in one language apart from the English, so that they can study and they can be educated as to come at par with the advantaged group which is studying all the subjects in English. So, here the bilingual education is being seen as not something commendable. It is for the disadvantaged group. It is a bridge. It is a bridge which will bring the children from the disadvantaged group to the advantaged group by covering the academic aspects which the advantaged group is studying in English. So, this is how it is being seen in USA. But if we have a look how it is being seen in European countries, bilingual education is seen as advantageous, because there it means that the child is studying many languages. He might be studying Mandarin, he might be studying French and English, and of course he may be studying some tribal language also. So, there the bilingual education is seen as advantageous. The student who is studying bilingual education, he or she would be better at translating, he would be better at understanding the culture, different culture in which he or she is studying. So, here it is seen as something which is advantageous, and of course, it is basically meant for the children who are socially advantaged students. So, friends, now let us try to understand that how bilingual education should be introduced. Should it be introduced as it was introduced in USA? How was it introduced in USA? USA, it was perceived that English is seen as a difficult language for the children who come from the disadvantaged group. So, they were much more comfortable in Spanish. So, that is why, for making them well versed with the lower quality of education, the Spanish was introduced along with the English. And the reason for why the language is introduced for those minority or socially disadvantaged students was that they if they are being taught in English purely, then they would fall behind their peer. So, it was kept in mind that as to bring them at par with their peer, the bilingual education or bilingual languages were introduced. The students were given the kind of a chance to upgrade themselves by studying the basic subjects in Spanish, and then later on when they have become well versed in those subjects and well versed in the English, then they can start studying the same subjects in English just as the other peers. So, as I told you that it was basically a bridge for the socially disadvantaged students to come up at par with their peers. So, friends, here I take your leave. I shall be joining you soon again in my next lecture. We will be talking about that how it has come into being, particularly in the American schools. We will also try to understand that how it should be introduced in India and how it can be advantageous in our particular social diverse circumstances which we have in our country. So, friends, I, Dr. Renu Tomar, signing off till I join you again in my next lecture on bilingual education. Friends, namaskar. Have a good day.